or slept since.
Hey, Chris Brisson here, CEO and co-founder of Call Loop, and I'm here in Phoenix, and I just heard Jay give some real estate training. In fact, real estate has been something I've been wanting to do, and I never really pulled the trigger on it. I've been focused on the business and everything else, and I learned actually a lot about how to choose deals, how to choose a property, and these are things that I knew nothing about. And in many respects, I was kind of fearful on how to choose a property, how to value a property, what's a good deal to go after. And Jay kind of really laid it out in acronyms and a very step-by-step process. So he was awesome, full of energy, and he just kept going around. So it was awesome. And thanks, Jay, for everything you shared today in the event. So thanks a lot.
Love his idea that the deal is actually the least important part of that it's figuring out the other three first that matters most. And that's going to influence how I go look at real estate.
My name is Tapan Trivedi. I'm from Sacramento, California. I am a fix and flip investor. I came here to see Jay Massey, because I've heard a lot about him. And I must say it is a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend to anybody that is either starting out or is a prolific investor themselves. Come down, you would not be disappointed. He is amazing. I mean, he has not really left anything to chance. He has answered every question, philosophical, logical, and financial, and that's a very rare combination. So I highly recommend this to anybody.
So yesterday I had the opportunity to be part of Jay's private training and was able to bring up a property that I had interest in. And the first thing that he did was he tried to understand everything that I knew about the property, and from that point, he put me straight to work. He sent me outside to go call the guy and get numbers on what I needed to know about this property. Came back in and helped me one-on-one with how to proceed with this.
Wondering what's going on. Hi, we're still here.
You know, back a long time ago, you would have those vertical bars that would say, please stand by. So anyway, glad you guys are here. Hello, hello, hello. Here's the good news. The good news is that as I'm looking at the number of questions we got submitted for this week, we don't have a lot of questions. That's the good news. It's good news because for all of you who are live, get to typing now, because I can invest in a significant amount of time today in answering your specific questions. So begin to type them now so that by the time we're done with the questions that have been already submitted, we have your questions to go through as well. All right, so with all that being said, welcome to another episode of Q&A with Jay. Glad that you're here. Many of you have been, working hard and diligently over the past week or so, raising capital, going out there, executing deals, and I'm excited for that progress. I'm excited for that growth. Many of you are, out there making it happen, and that's what it comes down to. As you guys know, may or may not know, a few years ago, my wife and I, we weren't exactly what you would call astute real estate investors. It's what we've grown into becoming. We started by squatting in our bank-owned property. I had a punctured lung, couldn't walk and talk, and my wife was unable to eat and drink, something that simple. And that's how we started with a credit score of 398. And as many of you already know, we do real estate in many different states in the U.S. as well as internationally, and we also raise private capital. We do all kinds of things, so I welcome your questions from all areas, and I'll do my best to make sure that I give you a relevant, salient answer. Additionally, what we want to do is we want to provide an opportunity to help you get unstuck. I can't, unfortunately, spend hours upon hours with each and every person and answer every question that they have in detail. So I do my best to try to make myself available where I can to answer in very short snippets to give you something that will hopefully get you unstuck so that you can move forward. And that's what Q&A with Jay is all about. For those of you joining us for the first time, you may also want to note that we have a podcast in iTunes at cashflowdiarypodcast.com. We do our best to produce quality content. At least we hope it's quality. You obviously are the ultimate judge. And that's, so that's what we do. We release episodes every Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, so that way you can listen and listen and listen. We're almost at our 100th episode, trying to figure out what should we do, if we should do something special for episode number 100. If you've got an idea, type it in the chat box. Speaking of which, if you're watching us somewhere other than on cashflowdiary.tv, that's probably why you don't see a chat box. It's because it's on cashflowdiary.tv. That way, when it's time, I can look over here and see what those questions are. Oh, I see we have one already. I'll be able to answer those questions and help you. So if you go over to cashflowdiary.tv, be right there. Let's see what we've got. Jackson, excellent. Hey, Jackson, how you doing? Afternoon, Jay. My question, does Dodd-Frank affect the structure of a lease option, specifically monthly credit towards purchase price? Woo! Okay. Jackson, I love the questions you're asking. They're getting more and more complicated, layer upon layer. So, the easiest answer, the easiest way, Jackson, to get to the bottom of your question is, who are you giving the lease option to? For example, if the lease option is to someone who is going to be an owner-occupant, the answer is probably. There's probably an issue there. If it's going to be to a tenant, and then you're selling the house on a lease option to an investor, the answer is probably not. So that's one of the first and clearest qualifications, because Dodd-Frank has a lot to do mostly with the owner-occupied and lender market. Now, that's the other thing. You're not lending when you're doing a lease option, unless you start doing crazy things like giving people credit in their monthly payment towards the purchase price, which for most experienced investors that I'm aware of is exactly what you don't want to do. So don't do that. Now, obviously, all of that's going to be varied based upon your location, based upon your real estate attorney's advice, blah, blah, blah. But in general, we should get a disclaimer sometime, little lower thirds, just saying, hey, that would be great. Anyway, all I'm saying is that's how I would begin to attack this. If it's an owner-occupant, the answer is probably an issue. The second issue is you're not a lender. unless you're actually doing what you just described, then it could be imputed. There could be an imputed interest rate as well as you giving that person a loan, which could be a challenge. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers and clarifies a thing or two. Oh, there's another question. Sep, why am I not surprised? You know, what's interesting is that those of you who do the homework that, for those of you, well, you had to be in the courses, but if you were in the courses and doing the homework, etc., you keep showing up. And I find that interesting. I don't know why, but Sep has been here from the beginning, and he's always got new questions, which tells me that even though he's been able to do some amazing things in a short period of time, he's still learning, and he's still growing, he's still asking more questions. So let's see what he has to say this time. Hi, Jay. Can you give us some examples of how you manage $1 million rehabs? Oh, boy. Well, we only have an hour. What are the best practices to protect the money during repositioning? Do you pay the contractors, vendors, and installment payments? Got it. I can likely reverse engineer this by, well, here's what I do. Because you guys don't get to often hear about what I'm doing, because that's usually for the Cash Flow Diary Founders members inside the diary product that we produce. So many of you know about the membership. If you want more information on that, you can click on the link below. But what I want to do is I want to take a small moment, and I'm going to answer your question, Seth, by describing what I'm doing right now with a commercial property. All right? So let's see how this works. In general, many of you know that I run everything by one idea. Do only, and the key word here is only, all right, that which you do best. Now, that does not mean, okay, some of you will take this as a license to mean that, well, I don't have to do anything new. No. You don't know if you could do something well until you've tried. Just because you've never done it, that doesn't mean you're not good at it. You need to find out first. Find out that you're not good at something before you go, you know what, I'm just not going to do it. For example, I found out very quickly that I was horrible at paperwork because wholesaling requires paperwork, short sales require paperwork, real estate requires paperwork, and the one thing I sucked at is paperwork. So I had to find people who could help me with something as simple as paperwork. And I do my best to not do my own paperwork these days. And now what that means is that when I'm doing a transaction, I show up to technically the UPS store. That's my closing office. And I sign some documents, get it notarized, make a fax copy, send that into our office, and then I send the originals over to the actual escrow or closing attorney or however we're doing that. That's what I do. Now, all the filling out of the paperwork and all that stuff is actually done by other individuals these days. And because I don't do paperwork the best, but I found that out by trying to do it first. So do only that which you do best. I don't do any rehabs best. I don't manage detail well. So those are two things that I've learned to have other people who like detail, who think in processes, who can think in steps like that, and who can see all of those things, as well as make sure that someone who knows how to hold a hammer correctly is the one that's holding hammer correctly. Because those things are critical when it comes to any size rehab, regardless of the dollar amount. So I'm going to take this in reverse. Do you pay the contractors and vendors in installment payments? One of my favorite ways, at least these days, to do this is, so with the example, is to have, if you can, depending on who the contractor is, depending on how these things go, have you reimburse them monthly, hear me clearly, have you reimburse them monthly based upon receipts submitted. So what does that mean? Let's look at it from a date standpoint. Say they start work on something on the 1st, and then this month, whatever month it is, it has 30 days in it. So what happens is that between the 1st and the 30th, they're going to have an outgo of cash of some kind and some amount. So their cash is going out. And then what's going to happen is that on the 1st of the following month, first, and let's just call that the 31st, what you're going to do is you're then going to do your best to negotiate the ability, to pay that same dollar amount back in. And these two are connected. So you want to do your best to negotiate the ability to do this. That way, you know you're only paying based upon receipts. So on the 30th, what they're doing is they're submitting the receipts that for everything that they've spent this month, everything that you know is done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's one way when it comes to payment. Additionally, you want to have some way of phasing and checking the work. You've got to have a superintendent or someone on your side, someone you pay, whose job it is to make sure that all the punch out lists are done, to make sure that everything that's supposed to be done during that phase of work is done. And you should also start with what are known as scopes of work. So I'm sure you're doing all of those things already, but those are the things that you begin to check off so that you begin to work in reverse and get those things done. What are the best practices to protect the money during repositioning? That's kind of the same thing here. That's basically what we're doing, is because we're making sure the work is already done as much as we possibly can, and then paying them for what's done, and then moving forward to the next place. Many times, for some of you, depending on your credit situation, you may want to be the one to buy the materials or use your debit card, or not debit card, Home Depot card, or whatever hardware store you have in your area, Lowe's, Ace Hardware. There's a hint, Ace Hardware, that I would, appreciate supporting. There you go. I guess I got to go there now. Anyway, the point is, this is what I'm referring to. When that happens, you may want to be the one that buys the materials, because occasionally it's not that it's wrong that they'll upcharge the materials, it's just that you just got to know. None of those things are inherently wrong. You can't go, ooh, I can't believe you let them upcharge you on the materials. Well, if they knew how to pick the stuff better than you did, then great. You got your money's worth. It's all those types of things, but you got to have a number of processes and a number of controls. Fortunately, what this ultimately is going to lead to is you need a person who functions as a CFO to make that happen. And a bookkeeper is not a CFO. An accountant is not a CFO. A CFO is a CFO, period. And the roles and functions and responsibilities are completely different. But when it comes to protecting the money, that's their job. That's what they do. They play defense. So many people in the team, they're either offensive, defense, the CPA, CFO, or C3PO. I don't know. My brain's going to all kinds of places right now. The CFO job is to protect the money. That's it. That's what he or she is there to do. Protect the money. Get stuff paid, protect the money. Protect the money. That's all they're thinking, except they also think, and if you've got the right one, they also know how to think strategically as well and help you figure out where's going to be the highest and best use of your next $250,000, $500,000, $2 million, whatever the income you have coming in. They can help you analyze. Is it time to reposition the equity in this asset? They should be able to do all of those types of things in addition to this basic function right here. And so hopefully that begins to give you some understanding, is that I don't manage this process. We manage this process. I don't have the skill set to manage this process. We have that. And for some of you, maybe you just made a decision. You said, you know what? If it has to be a we, I'm only comfortable with me, and therefore my business is going to stay small. There's nothing wrong with choosing to stay small. Just know that that's what you're doing intentionally, and if that's where you want to be, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just know that if your desire is to grow bigger and do more, you're going to have to learn to develop the interpersonal skills necessary to attract and retain the talent that can help you do all those types of things. And without it, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. All right. This material is valuable. Oh, that's why you keep showing up. Thanks, Seth. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. Jaleesa. Uh-oh. Let's see. Hey, this is a long one. Hey, Jay. We need assistance with creative financing. Uh-oh. I think I know where this is going already. Our challenge is the seller is stuck on getting a large down payment, and our line-up buyer refuses to put half down as requested by the seller. They made a suggestion of putting $5,000 down and carrying a $30,000 mortgage with her for as long as possible, and willing to do many balloon payments of, say, $5,000. How do I write this out? Interesting. Okay, so Jaleesa, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm confused because at the top you said you need assistance with creative financing, but it sounds like you have the creative financing option and what you only need is a contract. And if that's the case, that's going to be an attorney. That's how I'm interpreting that. And there's nothing wrong with what you suggested about the mini balloon payments. The question is did you get a verbal yes from the seller? If the seller said, okay, I'll do that, that's fine. Always remember this. A down payment, especially the larger ones, is a reflection of trust. If I don't trust you, I need a large down payment, period. Now, secondly, the other thing that could be happening here is that I'm kind of curious as to what the loan balance is on that first house. What is the first position loan currently? That first position loan, I'm guessing, is why they're thinking in their head they have to have a large down payment so they can retire that first one. I don't know. You're the one in the conversation. Hopefully you've dug. Doesn't matter. You know what I meant. Deep enough to find out the situation and understand what's going on there. So hopefully that helps. Let's get to one of the submitted questions. You guys keep typing. I'm telling you, we only got like 6, 7 submitted questions here. So keep typing. We'll catch them and we'll make sure that we get them answered. Yusuf, single family house. As much as I don't like single family properties, I need to move this property fast. Can I get this deal analyzed? I do not understand. If you don't like them, why are you doing them? That's my first question, because anything you don't like doing is going to feel like a job and it's going to be tough to sell it. It's just going to be tough to sell it, regardless of the numbers. Okay, so Poughkeepsie, New York. Hopefully I said that right. I think so. Purchase price is $135, $20,000 repair costs, $155. Okay, estimated gross operating income $1,350 on a monthly basis. Monthly expenses 7. Annual return on investment 5.88. I'm not sure what you're asking me to analyze because it looks like you've done that already. So here's what I will do is that I'll run a couple of quick math tests on this to see if this works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just copy some numbers real fast. So we have $150,000 and then we have $1,350. Okay, give me a second. All right. So here are the numbers that I was just copying down. So the 150 and the 1,350. And all I'm going to do is just run some quick math tests, as you can see here. So I'm going to take the 150, because that's also known as your book value in this particular case, and to multiply that by 1.5%. And it fails the first test because it would need to rent for. So the gross income from this building would need to be $2,250 in order to qualify as a buy and hold in my book. And it, well, isn't. So that fails the test number 1. Test number 2 is going to be to take the 1,350, and I'm going to divide that by 4, and that's going to give me a different number. So here we go here. Whoops, 7, 4. And that's going to say, yeah, this is about to be a miserable fail. 337 and 50 cents. So 337 and 50 cents. This is going to be the debt service that I'd be willing to pay on a building that generated that kind of income. So the question is what size of a down payment and how do I make this building cash flow? I can tell you already this is already an epic fail from a buy and hold standpoint. So, but I'm going to show you the math anyway. So in this particular case, what I'm going to say is if I was going to make a fully amortized loan, that's why final value is 0. And I was going to then have a payment of 337.5 payment. And I'm just going to assume I can get a 6% loan. Maybe it could be lower. Yes, I understand all that. I'm just putting in 6%. What this is telling me is that the largest loan balance I could have is about $56,000. So here's how I'm looking at this before we go any further. I'm looking at the fact that you've got to have a loan balance of $56,000. Okay? So if the loan balance is $56,000 and you already know you've got to be $150,000 into this property, this is telling me you're going to have to spend $94,000. You're going to have $94,000. Whoops. There we go. You're going to have $94,000 that's in the property in order to make cash flow even happen. Now, I don't know about you, but for $94,000, let me see what you said here. You said that so if the rent is $1,350, what I'm going to say in this situation, that your cash flow is also going to be $337.50 because you guys understand the income minus expenses equals NOI minus debt service formulas that I use. That means $337.50 times 12, $337.50 times 12 is equal to $4,050. So $4,050. So on $4,050 divided by 94,000, that's going to give me a 4.31% return. I mean, if you're happy with that, great. I consider that 4.31% to be an underutilization of $94,000. That's my investor identity. However, that's what it's going to take to make that a buy and hold property. So, which to me says this needs to be a fix and flip of some kind. And I don't know what after repair values are, but that's where you're beginning to look here. If this is going to be a wholesale deal or a fix and flip deal, then that's fine. In my opinion, as a buy and hold, probably not the way to go. Just probably not the way to go, unless you're using someone else's capital who's okay with like a 2% return, and you can make the difference between 4.31 and 2, which still isn't, in my opinion, enough for the risk, but that's one way to make it happen. So hopefully, Yusuf, if you're watching, type in the box. I'll answer more questions as we go. Seb, are you still planning to putting together a how to run a successful cash flow game video or quick tip guide? I think this will really help the Raising Private Capital members. Wow, I'm just on blast like that. I just got to answer. Anyway, it's all good. So yes, Sep, the idea that is still going to happen. In fact, it's morphed a little bit into what I was thinking of doing is actually showing you guys, like getting in the studio like I am right now, having a special event for Raising Private Capital members only, and having you guys pummel me with all the questions that you think you have about how to do it. And then we were going to record that and make that obviously available to everyone who's part of the Raising Private Capital product. Now, what does that mean? That means that part of it is part of the challenge is we have to reconfigure the studio to come up with different camera angles because we need a top-down view and we need all these other things. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means we haven't done it. And what I want to do is just make sure that everyone's on board with that idea. So feel free to type in the chat box. So make sure that you're type inside the closed group on Facebook that this is something that you'd like. And I'll make sure that you guys know about it when it does happen, because I figure that's going to be a better way than me guessing at what you need to know. How about you just ask and we'll go from there. So make sure that you do that. And if you're not a part of the Raising Private Capital group yet, but you know that you need to be, especially now that I'm going to teach you how to play cash flow, send an email over to info@cashflowdiary with the words cash flow game in the subject line. That way we can pull it out of all the other emails we get and make sure that you're also notified. But remember, you have to be a member of the Raising Private Capital mastermind group so that you can begin to take advantage of that information as well. Now, speaking of raising private capital, earlier this year, I did a presentation on a cruise ship, in fact, and I met an interesting gentleman. Many of you may know him by the name of Simon Black. And what has happened has been unique and fun and exciting. And I've got a small little video that what I want to do is I just want to take a small moment and share this video with you because I think you'll enjoy it, you'll like it, but I just want you to watch this, okay? Let me see. Here we go. And now it's not playing. That's awesome. Is that what it is? I will refresh. Hey, look at that. Hit play. Hey.
Hey, my name's Craig Ballantyne. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and this is the 5th year that I've been coming to this event. It's the most amazing thing that you could ever possibly do. If you're a young person and you want to figure out how to get somewhere in the world, you need to be here. If you're ambitious, smart, intelligent, and just know that there's a free life out there waiting for you. You don't have to work for the man. You don't have to do what your parents told you to do. You need to be here in Lithuania next summer for the event.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy living somebody else's life. Learn how to spot opportunities, how to create your own rules, and benefit. The time is limited, and the opportunity is now.
The instructors here are willing to tell you the things that no one else will ever tell you. And I'm amazed at how many secrets of marketing and how many secrets of actually creating a product that they've told me that out of everything else I've done, from being in school at Harvard to the Teal Fellowship to Startup Chile, none of those things I've heard as much valuable insights than I have from just being here at Blacksmith Camp.
I came all the way from Zimbabwe not knowing what I was going to learn here, but it has been a life-changing experience. I feel motivated, I feel challenged.
The instructors are really good, they know their stuff, you can really pick their brains. Some of the people I've met here have been amazing, they're all ages, but all have big dreams, big ambitions. This kind of opportunity and this environment is really hard to find.
They teach you so many tips on business and marketing, and they get you from the idea stage to now. I think everybody here is going to go home and start their own business.
Just being around all these people who are doing stuff, who are thinking on this level, it'll change the way you think. And almost automatically, you'll start to think bigger, you'll start to be more successful.
I'm such kind of a girl who came to the camp as having a good job and getting a good money. It's an international company, but this camp really changed my life.
And I just can't thank everybody enough here. The food was great, the exercise was great, the instructors were great, and every piece of information that I got is absolutely useful. It's given me a new direction in my life, and I can't wait to get home and get to work on it.
Eye-opening to see so many people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, to see what things are possible.
Most importantly, this is actually one of the very rare chances you actually get the world to come together and learn as one.
Blacksmith Entrepreneurial Camp гэдэг амралтын газар бол дэлхийн шилдэг залуучууд тоглож байгаа.
Então, quem quiser vir, por favor, recomendo demais.
It's a lot of fun. You're going to make friends from every single continent. So whenever you want to travel, now you have friends everywhere, and these are going to be lifelong friends. They could be partnerships, whatever you want.
I think one of the greatest ways to grow personally and to grow professionally is to surround yourself by people who think at a high level, who think on a higher level than you do. And the Blacksmith Camp is the perfect place for that.
It's inspiring. It fills you with a sense that you can do your dream, you can be free.
Conversations were so awesome. Like, you're constantly learning and challenging the way you look at the world to the point where, you just go, you know what? There's no challenges, there's solutions, and I've got the skills to find the answers.
I've had riveting conversation, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 59 other extremely intelligent, worldly, awesome people.
Thanks to this camp, on my plane journey home, I already have written vast notes about what I'm going to be doing with my up-and-coming business. So this is the place to be. These guys are giving me the ammunition, the tools to know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it.
So if you're a producer and you see yourself as somebody that wants to bring value to the world or already is, then you should be here and you shouldn't hesitate to apply.
Just read the information page and apply. You're going to find it all out when you come to this camp.
So this is really a no-brainer. If you're really serious about changing the world, you need to come to this camp.
I definitely recommend that you do apply. Seriously look into this, and if you're skeptical, just like I was, don't be skeptical. This is the real thing, and you're not going to regret it.
Make sure that you find yourself in Lithuania next year and the years to come.
So I advise you to participate and apply for this camp, and good luck.
Imagine all the things that you can learn from the best people in business in the world. So just don't think, just apply.
You need to do this. You need to be here. If you care about yourself and your future, start now, take control, sign up.
So, you're wondering, why is Jay showing us this about Lithuania? Because I'm also letting you know, at the same time, that Q&A with Jay won't be Q&A with Jay next week, because I'll be in Lithuania. Simon has graciously asked me to come and be one of the instructors, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And now you have an understanding why. it's important. So I wanted to make sure that that was done. But the reason I brought it up then is because Simon saw me do the same presentation that I've done many times now for the profit analysis quadrant and the raising private capital material. And that won me a spot as an instructor, which I think is interesting, especially given Simon's ability to raise private capital himself and having just done so for, like, I think it was $35 million earlier this year for a coffee. I think it was blueberries. Some farm in Chile. And that's what he's been doing, for a number of years, which is great. And yet there was something in that presentation that was awesome that wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I was not going to be here. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on a plane in a completely different time zone. But it's going to be awesome either way. So we will be back, obviously, after I get back. We'll be in touch and in communication with you to do that. That's not an excuse to not write an offer, by the way. It's just letting you know where I'm going to be. So, Roslyn has a question. Let's get back to it. You're wondering how this report was compiled. Okay, got it. The market analysis video, Roslyn, that is a paid report that I use there. It's a paid service that actually compiles that report. It's REIS, Reis Reports, REIS. Oh boy, REIS. Did I get it right? Yes, there it is, I think. I'll know in a second when the website comes up. Yes, there it is. So it's reisreports.com. It's a paid service. That's how it was done. In the market analysis video, for those of you who have participated in any of our products, you know that's one of the bonus videos, teaching you how to break down a marketplace so that you can choose. Don't choose a marketplace by default. Do it by design. And you'll know the metric points to watch and watch out for when you're looking at a marketplace to be able to make sure that that happens for you. So that's why that video is there. Let's get to this next one. Gilbert Gottfried, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I want to know if there's a way to play the cash flow game online. Interesting. Has that been attempted? I would like to play, but I'm unable to make it to the games because they are not in my immediate area. Is there a way to start a game in your area? Wow. If there are no games in your area, Gilbert, we call that a monopoly, and it's all yours. So start one. That's the most important thing. Playing it online, yeah, there's a way to play online, but there's so much more learned in person, and I'm sure many of the people who have either played with myself or someone here who have ever played the game with people in general, they would attest to the fact that, yeah, playing the game in person is so much better, way more effective for your networking and your business than just playing it online. But play it either way. Any way that you can makes sense. Susan has a question. You mentioned Marcus and Millichap for jobs reports. Do you happen to have a website you can point me to, or is this a firm business publication that you can just Google? So the short answer is, Susan, you can just Google it, but I'm going to go to Marcus, there it is, marcusmillichap.com, Marcus Millichap. Even though the name of the company is Marcus and Millichap, it's marcusmillichap.com. You can go log in or register. The registration is absolutely free. Notice the stress on the free. So that's what I'm going to do over here. Hopefully this password and email combination, oh, darn it. Hold on. See if I can remember what the password is. And if I did, great. If I didn't, yay! So you can go over here and get a lot of their, there we go, property search, regional investment market, investment property types, national specialty groups. They've got a number of different reports, especially under their research section, that they provide at absolutely no cost that I know many of us here are going to want to take advantage of. That way you have the ability to look at things like employment, construction, absorption, and if those words just went whoop, over your head, totally understood. It takes time to learn the language, but that's part of what we're doing here to do our best to point you in the right direction. Let's see. Okay, I am having trouble on the go, no go. Average rent is, so this past step one. Then where do I get the cash flow figure? How do I know how much the buyer wants as cash flow? You don't know. Okay, Earl, got it. Now I understand. You don't know how much the buyer wants as cash flow. That's the whole point. You are making an assumption. So if the $700 or $680 or $690 of rent divided by 4 is a high enough cash flow for the buyer, then great. You don't know. but you're still analyzing it to see if the building can cash flow. So if it passed the first step, the answer is great, it's perfect. And you get the cash flow figure by taking the gross rent and dividing by 4. Gross rent divided by 4, you'll get the cash flow figure. So you're like, what is he talking about? Earl is actually a member of our our How to Find Deals. It's basically some people want to know how to find money, others want to know how to find deals. Earl is taking advantage of our How to Find Deals course, and if you want more information on that, you can go to cashflowdiary.com. Whoops. cashflowdiary.com/workshop to register for a webinar where I'll talk to you about how I found deals, how I was able to do 11 deals in 1 week, and how you're able to use that money for many different purposes. And it's very similar to what Jaleesa and Jamario were talking about earlier when she was saying about the creative financing. So if you were here for that, then you understand what's going on there. All right, I see many questions in the chat room. Let's see, how big was the first deal you raised capital on? That first deal was a 5 single-family houses, and I had to raise the capital for purchase price as well as the capital for rehab, so it was about $100,000. Or your first investors found through cash flow? Yes, yes. Yeah, I'm always playing cash flow. I can, and I'm not kidding when I say these things. It's just I can point consistently to Cash Flow 101 being the center point hub. That's what I was trying to say, and it came out as sub. No, I'm not hungry, but that's what it is. The center point of everything. And that's why I stress it so hard. You've got to become the expert in your area, and the cash flow game is a great way to do that. Kyle, why are you going to sell the 182 unit building? I didn't say I was selling it. You mentioned refinance and then sell for a successful reposition. I'm not sure, Kyle, what you're referring to. I would definitely refinance the building. I don't intend to actually sell that one, even though it caught fire. Woohoo! Yay! Let's see. Does your construction manager handle the walkthrough with the contractors? Sometimes, yes. The construction manager, the superintendent. Sometimes I'll go. We also have a VP of operations. How much do you or your team typically pay for an inspection and do? Oh, geez, there is no typical pay. Unfortunately, I would love to say it's X number of dollars, but depending once you get to a certain number of units, they start charging per unit, and then it's down to per services, because there are certain things. I mean, you've got the roof inspector is not the same inspector who inspects the internals, is not the same inspector. There are just too many. Due diligence is a significant portion of the budget when it comes to the acquisition costs on the front end when you go beyond a single family house or a 4-unit building. So it's a lot of money, and it's on a case-by-case basis, unfortunately. Does your team do environmental phase 1 report, and what phase of? Yeah, well, it depends, Kyle. The environmental phase 1s do happen, especially when you're working with public funds, because they want to know, or banks, etc. There are many ways, there are many things inside of that require that phase 1 before you'll actually get the money. So you need to know what those things are. You need to understand that ahead of time. So an environmental phase 1 for some of you is just is there dangerous chemicals here on this soil? That's another reason why I tend to prefer vacant buildings who are quote unquote recently vacant, because there's less of a risk of something coming up in an environmental phase 1 as opposed to a complete reposition, i.e. it was a X and now it's going to be an apartment building. That could be dangerous. That could be a challenge. So those are the types of things that happen when you're buying land or vacant land and unimproved land. Notice 3 different types of land. So you've got to be aware of as we continue to go. She wants me to spell out the terms. Yeah, okay, Jaleesa, that you've spelled out the terms in terms of the house. That's perfect. What I'm saying now, that is the terms. When will those mini balloon payments be due? When do you want them due? That's what it comes down to. You have to now specify when each of those markers are. And if that's the case, then great. It sounds like it's a conditional yes. That's what I hear. I hear a conditional yes. If you spell out the terms, then spell them out. Okay, it's $5,000 today. 3 months from now, it's another $5,000. 6 months from that, it's another $5,000. And blah, 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 blah. Or when such and such happens, then it's $5,000. When this happens, that's $5,000. whatever you want it to be is what it can be. You just got to figure out what that is and if you can sell it to the seller, then you're good. The house is paid off. Even better. Then if the house is paid off and they're asking for a large down payment, like I said, that's a reflection of trust or a lack thereof, period. That's really what that is. Kyle at Jay, can you give some examples of how to pay team members with no fixed expenses? Outcome to expand my team with low overhead commitment. Depends on what team members you're referring to, Kyle. If you're talking about a team member who's inside the real estate space, you've got to, it changes per function. I mean, you can defer compensation all the time. You can barter for services. That helps. You've either got to pay them up front, you got to pay them later, exchange services, or just don't do that thing, whatever that is. But there are so many forms of that. That's tough. I hear you though. Jaleesa, she's looking to relocate, file for divorce, and wants to use the down payment to make everything happen. Aha! What I need to do is create terms that the investor and the seller is happy with, but I'm not sure how to spell everything out. Does having balloon payments require the borrower to renew the mortgage or anything like that? If the borrower doesn't have, having balloon payments, it doesn't require the borrower, a balloon payment requires the borrower to make a larger payment, larger than normal monthly payment. How the buyer chooses to make that payment is up to the borrower. They can refinance the property. They can get a second, a third, a fifth, or whatever loan. They can use a credit card. The seller ultimately doesn't care. They just want to they want the payment made. How that payment made isn't your responsibility as the wholesaler. The borrower, though, needs to know that that's the structure of the financing and needs to have a plan for being able to make it. Hopefully that adds some clarity to it. Luke, I'm not your father. Oh, God. Hey, Jay, this is Lucas. Okay, there we go. I have built a great number of houses to wholesale, mainly from investors who just want out. Yeah, that's usually where you find them. None of them are interested in creative financing. Okay. The few buyers that have contacted me seem to be hesitant or skeptical to buy. Either it's all in my head, since it has only been a couple of days of advertising the houses, or I'm coming off as inexperienced. I need help. It's probably both. You're coming off as inexperienced, Lucas, because, well, you're inexperienced, and that's okay. So to make up for that, you've got to get a killer deal. You've got to find a way to help. And again, when you're negotiating quote unquote creative financing, you've got to negotiate it in a way that makes sense. You don't go in and say, hey, we're going to do some creative financing. You never say that to the seller. You try to tell them things like, hey, I'm going to give you some money today and some over time, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense? Now, here's the good thing I know about you, Lucas, is you've already registered for the event that we're doing this weekend, and where I'm talking about how to double your leads, triple your sales in a quarter of the time while eliminating your marketing budget. So you'll be able to get more of how to do that and establish yourself there this weekend when we're talking. So make sure you bring these types of questions there so that way I can spend more time on them and help you get that answered. So, and for those of you who want to participate in this weekend, understand it is not a free event. It's been purposely kept small because we're going to answer very deep questions like this. And I'll be going through my sales system that has obviously allowed us to do lots of business in many different states, et cetera, across the U.S. We will be going through that in mass and starting from the top and working all the way through. Send an email over to info@cashflowdiary with more sales, M-O-R-E, sales at the top, info@cashflowdiary if you want more information. And to make sure that you are definitely interested, because this will cut down on emails right here, I'll just let you know it's $2,497 for the group session to participate. But then again, you got to understand, I'm sharing with you the exact sales system that I've been using for a number of years to be able to do, as I said, tens of millions of dollars worth of real estate and transactions and business. And for as a matter of fact, we even did, we did a good number of houses wholesaling this month alone. So just keep that in mind when you're like, oh my God, it's how much? Well, the question is will you use it to go out there and make any money? And if so, then great, it'll be fun. What's the best way to build a buyer's list as fast as possible if you live in a small town and your best resource is the internet? Your best resource isn't, well, okay, Henry, if the best resource is the internet, then here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to meetup.com and have a cash flow game and invite everybody to your house to play it. That is the fastest way to build a buyer's list. If you want to build any list, then great. But you want to build a buyer's list, you got to give them something that a buyer would want. Buyers in your neighborhood want to have cash flow, period. So they understand that term. They're looking it up right now. There's probably people right next door to you on your street reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you just don't know it. And then they start looking up, where can I play this cash flow game? And they're not finding anything. You become that person. Tyler, we are all waiting for the audiobook. Hint, hint. Yes, Tyler, here's the update on that. Remember earlier when I said, let's see. Where is it? Where? I know I said it earlier. Yes, there it is. Do only that which you do best. Keyword here being only, but not letting it be because it's new mean that you don't try. Well, guess what? We've tried, and I have failed miserably. So here's what's happening. Is what we're doing right now is we are literally earlier today made the decision that what we're going to do is we're going to get a professional voiceover person to actually do the audiobook. That way you actually see it. However, there will be special sections of the book which will entail my voice, possibly even my wife's voice where it's appropriate, and so that you can have bonus content. So it's not like you won't hear me at all. If for those of you who absolutely love to hear me, you will. However, not the entire book. Guys, I've beat my head against the wall trying to do it. I promise you. I would say I've given it that old college try, but I'm a college dropout, so that doesn't sound too good. But I definitely have mad respect for people who narrate audiobooks. If you ever meet any of those people, just shake their hand, bow down, because I don't understand it. It's just a whole new skill set, way more than I could do. Very ambitious. Anyway, the point is, it's going to be soon now because we'll have a deadline and he'll be under contract and it'll be like, hey, you got to get it done, blah, 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 etc. So we're in the process of filling out the applications, getting auditions in. We're going to choose somebody. We'll move forward. It'll happen much faster now. I've beat my head up against the wall long enough, and I just got to put up the white flag and surrender. So that's basically what's going to happen there. So now you have an update on the audiobook. All right. Let's see. For instance, I have a seller willing to sell 5 houses and 1 triplex for about $130,000. Another to sell around 8 homes with tenants close to $300,000. Another has 6 and sell. None want to carry notes. Well, I understand, Lucas, because I got to say Lucas. If I say Luke, I start thinking about Star Wars. So I understand they don't want to carry notes, but they already have financing on them. So unless they're all paid off. They're all paid off, it's a different story. But if they're not all paid off, they're not carrying notes, the bank is. So there's many other ways to have this conversation other than starting off, well, you carry paper. You've got to explain to them the benefits of the things that you're talking about. Because oftentimes I found, even with people who have had property before, they just don't quite yet understand the benefits of seller carry. Once you begin to understand the tax benefits of carrying a note, they don't always want all the cash. So there are so many different things to worry or to look at and understand in that sense. Alice, hi Jay. Can I do a subject to transaction if I don't have good credit? And how do I set this up with the bank and seller? Alice, subject to is exactly what you do when you don't have good credit. It's how I did my first one with a credit score of 398. And as far as how do you set this up with the bank and the seller, that's at least a 4-hour instructional conversation in order to make that happen. But at the end of the day, everybody gets notified. Title knows, bank knows, everything. But there is a special way to do it. Unfortunately, Alice, I do not have enough time to actually go through all of the steps necessary that you need to check off on your list to make sure that it's done properly. I am sorry. There's just no way. Henry, what's the biggest apartment building you wholesaled? 14 units. And how did this compare to the single family? I don't think I understand how it compares. what you mean by that, but the biggest apartment building I've wholesaled is 14 units. I don't typically wholesale apartments, and it was just one of those unique situations where it made sense. Jay, have you ever had an issue with people stealing supplies from your rehabs in Memphis? Did you hire security or put up extra fencing? Got it. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. And you always have an issue with security, but you always have to figure out different ways of doing it. And now, I don't always try to, quote unquote, hire security. There's always, again, there are other ways to negotiate for the security that you need. So now, hear me clearly, Kyle. This one's kind of out of the box, right? There are many nonprofit organizations in various jurisdictions that they call them second chance organizations, right? An ex-con, a felon, gets released and needs a job, right? So they'll take that group of individuals who are looking for something to do, and maybe they're the ones who are a part of your demolition crew. Maybe they're the ones who are working in exchange for something else. See, they understand the signs. They know how to keep the right people away. There are many, we'll call them ninja secret, super secret techniques like that we employ to lower our operating costs while still increasing our security to make it clean, safe, and affordable. So, yeah. You said you don't know ARV. How did you determine I don't know ARV? I don't know what you're referring to. I'm sorry. I don't know ARV. I said I don't know the ARV of, I remember there was one property, was that in New York? I think that's what we were talking about. He didn't tell me what the ARV is. I don't know. How did you determine value for your buyers? You're gonna have to clarify that a little bit better, sorry. I hear that great expanses of areas in Detroit are being turned back into farmland. This interests me because of something I heard Simon Black say during your interview with him on your podcast recently when he was talking about agri-investing, right? Particularly in blueberry farms. Yep. What do you think about such investing, especially in areas like Detroit? Would I speak with city planners in Detroit to learn more? Well, the first question is you got to find out what kind of, okay, so when it comes to agricultural stuff, you got to, remember guys, how many times do I have to say this? I love it though. The first question is who's the customer? What are you going to grow? And is there enough demand for whatever product actually could grow in Detroit? I don't know what could grow in Detroit. I have no clue. But that would be what I would be thinking. What grows easiest and well in Detroit? And then go, okay, so what's the demand for soybeans? And where is that demand? Is it anywhere near Detroit? Or do I also need to worry about distribution and getting it there? You got to know who the customer is before you just go buy some land and say, hey, I'm going to produce soybeans. Once you understand who the customer is, everything else gets answered. But that's the work. So it's not so much the city and finding out what the planning commission would say. The question is who's going to buy whatever you're going to produce? And if you go back to that same interview with Simon, you'll hear him talk about how he was focused on the products that the land could produce that people would purchase. That's what made a lot of his decisions, is that how highly profitable each particular item he chose to produce on his land was done. So you approach it from that perspective, and you'll be fine. Jay, how has the Lithuania event introduced you to opportunities in international real estate and business? Kyle, don't know. I'll let you know when I get back, though. And for those of you who are foundation members, you're going to see the video updates as I'm there. If you want to find out more about what that means, just click the link below, and you get a 7-day trial for $1. That doesn't hurt. Linda, excellent. Have you ever had a situation where you are buying a larger property and you do your due diligence and have spent that money and you decide to walk away from the property? Yes, I have. Do your investors eat that expense? Yes. And how do you deal with this? You buy something bigger. Do you discuss the possibility up front? Yes, Linda, you bring up a great point. Okay, there was I think it was 138. Before we actually settled on the 182 unit building, there was a 138 unit building that was fire damage, and you guys know I love that stuff. That was fire damage, etc. That we were going to purchase, and then the due diligence was being done, and we were like, you know what, we don't want that. Here's my point. This is why I am is important, and that's why you must do them in that order. As many of you have heard me say, it's the individual, the marketplace, team, and then the deal, right? And they all have their own unique identity. And this is why you need to spend most of your time, especially with your investors, describing your individual investor identity, the marketplace identity, and the team's identity, so that when deals fall apart, you don't lose the investor because they bought into this. They understand that whatever's on the shelf, that's going to change anyway. What they bought into is this. And when you've got that, that's how you deal with it. So you know that going in. You're like, look, guys, here's what's going to happen. This is the property we intend to purchase. If for some reason it doesn't, we'll just find another property in the same general location, marketplace, that fits with what our team has the capability of doing, and we'll just do it on that particular address. Because most of the time, the investors they don't care what address it is. they don't really, that's not like, ooh, it has to be on Main Street. Because if it's not, then what? I mean, they're not doing the work in most cases anyway. So that's why this investor identity concept becomes important. You close on concept, and then, you close on concept. That's what you want to do, and then you go to see the attorney and you get the paperwork done. So hopefully that helps. Let's see, is there a free alternative to the REIS reports? Yes, Serena. The free alternative is a newspaper in Google. But you need here's what I would do, Serena. Go sign up for REIS reports, and then they got like a 7-day trial, I think, and get one report. Look at that data, and then Google, between the BLS, Bureau of Land Statistics, BLS.gov, Bureau of Labor Statistics, for jobs, between the government reports, the newspaper, etc. You can compile all of that information for free, all of it. But the Reese Reports makes their money from convenience. That's the problem that they solve. So that should help. And how do you promote your cash flow games? Facebook posts, Meetup game or Meetup.com. All of those are acceptable methods. Let's see. Which team member pays the insurance and taxes? I don't think I understand that question. The CFO pays the bills. To whom is your bill sent? The bill is sent to us, I think. Hopefully, I'm just confused. I'm just making sure that the question is that simple. The bill is sent to us, and the CFO pays it. Okay? How will the sales day be different from previous lead generation day? Because, Kyle, we haven't talked about lead. Lead generation is different than the conversation that happens. What happens? How do you get the person? All of it, like the question Jaleesa was having earlier. How do you get that person who's in that situation and in that mindset from where he or she is over to where he or she needs to be? Most importantly, to sign on the dotted line and say yes. How do you get that person to then give you all the referrals you need? How do you make sure that you don't have to keep spending tens of thousands of dollars on yellow letters or flyers or sticky notes and all those other things? How do you make sure your cash flow game grows to the point to where you never have to generate a lead, and more importantly, sales come to you? I mean, that's just some of the ways that the sales day is different, because that's what I literally mean. I literally mean double the leads, triple the sales in a quarter of the time. Understand those first three things are huge. If I can help you do the same amount of revenue you did last year, but have you do it in one quarter as opposed to it taking all year, that in and of itself is a benefit. But we're talking about doubling the amount of opportunities you have, and then tripling the amount of sales from those same doubled opportunities, because we'll shorten sales cycles. People ask me, how do you get through so many things so quickly? Well, this is part of that process. This is part of that process. So hopefully that helps, answers that question as well. So Earl has another question. If I were to do the reverse math thing, I would show what? Yes, you got it. Yes, if you did the reverse, that's exactly right. It makes rent go way out of the ballpark. You're identifying exactly what I'm talking about. When you do the reverse math thing and the rent is too high, that's called an indication. That's called a no-go. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. So hopefully, Earl, you're watching. I don't really know. For those of you who missed it at the beginning, We have a podcast in iTunes, cashflowdiarypodcast.com, cashflowdiarypodcast.com. Go ahead and go over there. Make sure that you download some episodes because I'm sure there's more information. We're always releasing episodes, doing our best to educate the market so that you guys have an opportunity to understand how to take action and make things happen. Any last question in there? What is this? Regarding lease options, would it be possible to credit some monthly rents towards repairs instead of credit? No, stop. Jackson, stop with the credits. You're killing me, man. All of it gives what is known as equitable interest. Equitable interest. The specific thing you're working to avoid is equitable interest. Once equitable interest happens, instead of an eviction, it becomes a foreclosure. And instead of a lease, it could be interpreted as a loan with a very high, probably usurious interest rate. So these are all things that you absolutely want to avoid, unless your intent is to actually give equitable interest. So none of those credit things that need to happen, okay? So hopefully that answers. It looks like we got through all of the questions again, which is great. As you guys know, I do look forward to talking to you soon. It won't be next week because I'll be in Lithuania. Yes, if you have to look it up on the map, so did I. Don't worry. Okay. Yet, pay attention to your emails. If this is your first time and you don't get the emails yet, here's what you want to do. You want to go over to cashflowdiary.com/updates. Make sure that you're on the list to be notified. Oh, the guys in the studio are telling me I just made a boo-boo. It's cashflowdiary.tv. Sorry. cashflowdiary.tv/updates. And that way you can be notified when Q&A with Jay happens. Obviously, we do our best to do them most Tuesdays. Unfortunately, in Lithuania, we won't have that ability this particular time. However, we are working on a way so that when I travel, that we can still do them, which will be interesting, especially when we go to international places where there are tropical lands and resorts being built, which shall remain nameless in this particular episode. Many of you know what I'm talking about anyway. So it's all good. Hopefully you've had an excellent time today. Thanks for the questions. I look forward to talking to all you guys again soon. Until next time.